you see that they're marching out of a large arch with a pillar on the arch, right? Everybody see that? There's an arch, and on the right side of the arch is a big pillar. Everybody see that on the Night Watch painting? You can see it on the painting. And by the way, after we're finished looking at this, you should go take a look at that painting over there on the side, because that's a painting that was done of the Night Watch. And you'll see that the Night Watch has been cut down. The Night Watch was actually much bigger on the left and on the top. And those parts were cut off of the Night Watch at some point. And by the way, if you try to steal this, there's actually, or in case of fire, this is one of the few paintings in the world that has its own trapdoor. That if in case of fire, a trapdoor opens up its vents and drops it down into a safety slot. The people, if there's a fire, those people can die, but the Night Watch will be saved. That's the important part. Okay, so but actually, on the original, and if you go look at it, you'll see the arch is bigger. You can see from the top, you can see the full arch, and they're marching out of an arch with a pillar on the right, and then you have this explosion of a procession with Banning Koch in the front, holding out his hands like this. Right? Everybody see how he's holding out his hands? And then the guy in the back is holding up a staff containing this flag, the standard of the militia of Amsterdam. Everybody sees that? Okay, now, if you take a look at the etching, and again, the picture of the etching, this painting you're looking at was even bigger in the original. The etching you're looking at is actually smaller in the original. Etching's around 6 inches, 6 by 4 inches. I've enlarged this for you. If you actually see, you'll see that at the same time when Rembrandt was working on this massive painting, he made this tiny etching of the scene from Megillas Esther. This is called the Triumph of Mordechai, and this is Mordechai being led out by Haman outside the Shar Ha'ir, the gate of the city, onto the streets of Shushan. Right? And if you actually see that this is actually a perfect matchup to the Night Watch, that they're coming out of the same exact arch, the same pillar on the right, and he was creating this etching at the very same time that he was making this painting. If you take a look, Haman is actually holding out, he's in a slightly different position, but he's actually holding out his hands as the leader of the procession in the exact same position of Banning Koch. And Mordechai, with his staff, is almost perfectly positioned to be like the person who's holding up the flag, the standard of the militia. So Mordechai is sitting on the horse, on the sus of this. And what the significance of this is exactly what I said to you on the boat, is that the Dutch were obsessed with the Book of Esther. Rembrandt's Rebbe in Amsterdam, Peter Lastman, painted the same scene of the Triumph of Mordechai, which is hanging now in Rembrandt's house, which we'll see tomorrow, that painting. And Rembrandt did several scenes of Megillas Esther. But it wasn't just Rembrandt and his teacher. The Dutch painted Megillas Esther constantly. They were constantly doing Megillas Esther because they saw themselves as the Jews of Megillas Esther. That's what they did. So I'm going to quote to you from Stephen Adler's book, Rembrandt's Jews. He says, the Dutch were as fond, in Dutch culture, the tale of Esther looms large and assumes great significance. It appears as a theme in the literature and visual arts of the Netherlands in the 17th century more than anywhere else at any other time in history. The Dutch, at this particular time in history, loved Megillas Esther. And he writes, the Dutch were as fond of Purim plays as were the Jews. The Sephardim often kept to a relatively faithful, if joyously creative reenactment of the Bible story. Their productions were in Spanish and sometimes Hebrew. The Dutch, on the other hand, often went out of their way to make sure that no one missed the contemporary political relevance of the drama. And they had plays such as Esther by Jacob van Zevenkot, Jacob Revius's Haman, a Tragedy, the Amsterdam production of Nicolas Fontaine's Esther, and Johannes Sarwoetster's Hester, or the Deliverance of the Jews. Haman, with his idolatrous demands, was a representative of Spain. And Esther and Mordechai, on the other hand, were clearly personifications of the virtuous, pious Dutch. For those who wanted a deeper understanding of what they were seeing on the stage, So he writes, along with their literary colleagues, Dutch artists strove to keep the Esther story alive in the public consciousness. They took great interest in moments of the story that their counterparts did. And so whereas the Dutch have any number of paintings about Esther, Rubens only did one scene of Esther in his life. Rubens is a Catholic painter, he's living in a Catholic country. The Dutch are doing it constantly. And what you have here is this, he's giving you not just Mordechai being led by Haman throughout the city, but coming out of the very same arch, almost like a civic parade. And he's basically saying that, and that the parallel here is that the Night Watch is the new Jews. Amsterdam is the new Israel. Spain is Amalek. Spain is Haman. They are there to defend their free city, and they will defend it from the Spanish in a free manner, and defeat them against the odds, even though Spain is an empire and they are a small republic, just as the Jews were able to triumph over Haman and their enemies. The parallel, if you look very carefully, is really quite striking, especially in the arm gestures and the entire way they're coming out of this arch. And so the parallel is striking, and it highlights the incredible connection that the Dutch had to the Hebrew Bible, in that there is a strong connection between two works of art made by Rembrandt at the very same time in his career. One massive, one tiny, one world famous, one relatively unknown, one Dutch, one Jewish. And yet there's a profound connection between the two. Before we move on, I'll give you all a chance. Meet me right back here in 1 minute. You can all go if you want to take a look to see the canvas hanging to the right, so you can see what the full Night Watch originally looked like. And make sure to look at the arch. You'll see how much larger it is.